Hello everyone and welcome to an exciting session of Education USA. My name is Belita Kalala and I am the Education USA advisor here at the US Embassy, and we have an exciting chat this afternoon that I would like you to participate in. As the Education USA advisor, we want to celebrate International Education Week this week, and so we want to talk a little bit about the schools that we attended outside of our home countries. I finished my degree at the University of Zambia and then went off to study my master's at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. So this afternoon I'm going to ask my colleagues as well to share about their international education experience. And so I'll turn it over to Phil to introduce himself and talk a little bit about the universities he attended.
Thanks, Belita. Hi, everyone. I'm Phil Diamond. I'm the Public Affairs Officer here at U.S. Embassy Zambia. I did my undergraduate degree at Williams College, a small liberal arts college in Massachusetts. I studied psychology there, and I studied abroad in Sydney, Australia.
Hi everyone, I'm Ana Maria Carls. I studied at the University of Dayton in Dayton, Ohio, and studied abroad at El Haween University in Morocco, and I completed my master's at the Fletcher School at Tufts University.
Hi everybody, my name is Julie Mellon. I'm a Deputy Public Affairs Officer here at the Embassy in the Public Affairs section. I also studied psychology as an undergrad like Phil. I went to Santa Clara University in California, and for my master's degree I studied international affairs at the New School University in New York. I also studied abroad actually here on the African continent in Nairobi, Kenya.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Paul Gordon. I am the American Spaces Director here at the U.S. Embassy, and I studied my undergraduate degree, my bachelor's at the University of California, Berkeley, which is one of the flagship schools in public schools in California. And I studied my master's degree at the University of Maryland, College Park, outside of Washington, D.C. I also studied abroad in Guanajuato, Mexico, during my undergraduate.
Thank you, Paul. So in the spirit of International Education Week, I want to ask my colleagues why they chose the universities they attended. What was the decision that made you get to those universities, either in the U.S. or outside of the U.S.?
So I can start. I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia, in the southern part of the United States, but for college I wanted to see a different part of the country. So I purposely looked in other regions of the country, and so I decided let me go somewhere up in the Northeast. And I also wanted a liberal arts education because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do for a career, and that was probably the best single part of Williams for me, was having that liberal arts education where I could take many different subjects throughout the 4 years.
So you were able to study from a flexible point of view.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you. Ana Maria?
Yeah, there was a couple reasons why I chose University of Dayton. One of them was getting out of the state of Wisconsin. For me, UW-Madison was a little bit too big of a school for my liking, and then the other schools were a little bit too small. So I wanted to find something that was in between, where it was enough amount of people, but nothing where you're just a number to a professor. So my undergrad was about 7,000 students, so I got to meet new people every single week, but I saw familiar faces on campus, which was really nice, and had personal relationships with the professors. Additionally, I studied human rights studies while I was there, so a little bit of a different type of degree, and like Phil, it was a liberal arts degree, so took classes in philosophy, religion, political science, anthropology, so it was nice to get a broad perspective in the program.
Thank you. And Julie?
So I started my undergraduate degree at John Jay College of Criminal Justice, which is actually one of the city universities of New York. It's a public school, and New York City has their own system of just city schools, kind of the way most U.S. states have a system of state schools. There's so many in New York City, they have their own system. And I wanted to go there because I was really interested in forensic psychology, and it was one of the only schools that offered forensic psychology as an undergraduate degree. I ended up finishing my undergrad degree, I transferred at Santa Clara University in California, and I ended up transferring just because John Jay wasn't a perfect fit for me. I guess nowhere is really, because Santa Clara wasn't either, but I wanted to come back to California, and one of the things I loved about Santa Clara is that it's a Jesuit school, and the Jesuits really emphasize public service. That was a big part of every course that you could take there, and it was a requirement in order to graduate, and that was something that was really important to me and still is.
Well, thank you. Great perspective. Thank you.
So I chose the University of California, Berkeley One, because it was close to home, so I grew up in Northern California. The University of California system has, I think, over 8 or 10 universities in the system, and so you can actually apply to multiple universities with one application. So I really like that. I applied to Berkeley and UCLA, UC San Diego with one application, and then I could see which ones I got accepted to and compare them. Also for U.S. students, public schools can be quite a bit cheaper. So I know that international students are also looking at financial considerations when they apply. So the University of California, Berkeley was quite a bit less expensive for me than a private university would have been. I'm also very interested in social justice. University of California, Berkeley is well known for its sort of social justice history and perspectives. And I studied ethnic studies and women's studies when I was a student there. And so I was able to kind of really get involved with that community while on campus.
And I really hope that this is helpful for our audience, because many of us, when you're 17, 18, 19, you're struggling with why you need to go to a particular university and what kind of motivates you to get to a particular university. But the panel here has really pointed out really critical points about the program they wanted to attend, the schools they wanted to go to. For me, I wanted to go to the University of Nebraska-Lincoln because I wanted to be as far away from Zambia as I could be, you know, and so that was a great experience for me. But I want to find out from you, how did your international education or your education in the U.S. set you up for a diplomatic career? Because all of you are working as diplomats in Zambia, which we're all excited about, but how did you get here with your education?
Mm-hmm. So to start, I'd echo what you were just talking about going somewhere far away from Zambia. I think for me, it wasn't as big of a move from the southern part of the U.S. to the northern part of the U.S., but still that experience of going to a different part of the country was an experience of really branching out and integrating to a place that was totally different from what I knew. And so I think that whole experience, the 4 years there at college, studying different things, branching out, being in a new part of the country, inspired me to join the Peace Corps and then live abroad in Africa. And that just continued a process of branching out and pushing my boundaries and integrating in new places that eventually led me to the conclusion that, hey, diplomacy and moving around the world representing the United States would be a really cool career. And so here I am.
I think for me it was little steps every year or so. I did Model UN in high school, so I ended up being an avid Model UNer in college as well. So I think having that perspective and being able to go to a conference in New York and be in the United Nations building was just amazing to be there and see and be around diplomacy there. In addition, going into my sophomore year, I spent 5 weeks in Leipzig, Germany, with a host family, so that was kind of my first more long-term foray in being overseas, and that kind of clicked for me. I went overseas to Morocco for a semester for about 4 months and just enjoyed that time, was avid in Model UN, and I interned overseas in Switzerland, so it just kind of step by step. And then in my master's I studied international relations, so it was just kind of step by step I found myself in this career of diplomacy.
Thank you. And for our audience, I know some of them are thinking, oh my gosh, I've never even been to another province in Zambia. So how do I get to go and study in another country for my college education? And this is a really good transition to asking Julie and Paul about how working abroad, first of all, going to school abroad, then working abroad has impacted your lives. What do you think that has brought to your lives? It's a lot of travel, a lot of international travel.
It is a lot of travel. For me, studying overseas in Kenya was huge for me figuring out what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. And it's not like I figured it out immediately. I didn't know from there. I just knew that I wanted to spend more time overseas, and in particular in Africa. I had traveled to Kenya and Tanzania when I was a teenager with my grandmother because she had some connections there and brought me with her on a trip. And then from there, I wanted to study abroad and get more of that experience. The people in Kenya were amazing, the food, the travel opportunities, the exposure, I think, to people who are from backgrounds that are very different from your own. So I got to meet people from Kenya, from Tanzania, from Uganda, from all around sort of Eastern Africa, as well as other international students from the US and from Europe. And after that, I was a Peace Corps volunteer like Phil in Botswana and in Southern Africa. And that experience of studying abroad was kind of like the beginning of my adventure of wanting to continue living overseas and kind of being involved in cultural exchange and understanding the value of learning about people from different backgrounds and also representing the United States to people who are of different backgrounds.
Thank you. Thank you. And you, Paul?
Yeah, actually when I started out college, it wasn't something, I had done very much. I hadn't traveled very much. It wasn't something on my radar, but as I started to, study at a university with such a diverse population and also learn a lot in my ethnic studies classes about immigrants and refugees, I realized that, I wanted to broaden that experience of the world that I knew outside of California, outside of the U.S., and so I chose to do a study abroad program in Mexico that was through my university. It was a summer program, and we both studied Spanish but also learned about the culture and history of Mexico. And it really did help when I came back to California to be able to work more with the Spanish-speaking populations that live in California. After my undergraduate degree, I got very interested in education, which is what I primarily do now, work as a school counselor in education field, and working with a lot of parents and students that, again, come from Spanish-speaking countries or from other places in the world. And so I went back to Mexico for a year for a volunteer experience, and really became fluent in Spanish and got that experience. So it definitely started at university and inspired me to kind of get that more international perspective. And now I definitely can't imagine working or having the career that I have now without that perspective that I learned at university of working with a lot of different people from around the world.
So to our Education USA audience, I think the cool thing about studying abroad, and I hope many of you get to think about it during this International Education Week, is that you have these experiences that set you up for the rest of your life. You have these experiences that make you think, maybe I don't want to work in Zambia for the rest of my life or live in Zambia for the rest of my life. So these experiences, thank you for sharing this. I think they should open up your mind to think outside the box. You've gone to high school and primary school in Zambia, and so maybe this is time to think about going to study abroad, either for your master's or bachelor's. But before we wrap up, and I hope that you can put your comments on our chat, on our U.S. Embassy Facebook page, and we'll monitor that page and respond to your questions. But we're going to wrap up on a very fun note. I'm going to ask each member on this panel to tell us the most fun experience of your college experience and why you would want international students coming from Zambia to go and experience that.
So I'm going to cheat and give two. First, thinking back to the time when I studied abroad, and I studied abroad for 6 months in Sydney, Australia, what was so incredible was just getting to travel all over the country with my friends and just do this beautiful sightseeing, and that kind of instilled in me a love of travel for the rest of my life. And then my own college, where I studied for 4 years in Massachusetts, my most fun memories are of sports. I'm a big sports person, and so college, of course, the academics are important, but there's always a lot of other experience outside of academics. And for me, it was going to the ice hockey games with friends and cheering loudly for the Williams men's ice hockey team. That's what I remember.
Thank you. That's fine.
I mentioned one before about being able to travel to New York City and attend the Model UN conference and being in the UN building headquarters. But I think one thing, and maybe slightly simple, nothing flashy, but just having that on-campus life of being a 10-minute walk from all of your friends and just being able to stop by for dinner or meet up at the dining hall and have dinner together in between classes. I think that's something that we take for granted during those 4+ years, just having all of your friends nearby and being able to be like, hey, I'm stopping by your house or your dorm room and whatnot. So I just think that's one unique U.S. university experience.
Thank you.
So I think the most fun thing for me when I was in school was actually studying abroad and getting to meet people from other countries and getting to have so many local experiences with friends who I was close to who actually were locals, like not feeling like a tourist where I'm kind of out on my own trying to figure things out and I don't speak the language, but going out and spending time with other folks that I had met who are also students with me, who are my same age, but who could kind of show me around, could teach me about the way things were done in their country, and open up my mind and my experience to people who are really different from me. I also, like Anna Maria, when I was studying abroad, I lived on campus, which was strangely not an experience I ever had in the United States, because I first went to a very urban New York City school where there was no on-campus. You just lived in New York wherever you could find housing and commuted every day. And then when I finished at Santa Clara University, I lived at home and I commuted every day. So I only lived in a dorm and ate meals together with my fellow students when I was in Kenya. And that was an awesome experience. I kind of realized what I had missed out on. But that was one of the most fun parts as well.
Thank you. Paul?
I think, U.S. education is really unique in as Phil mentioned earlier, just having that really broad perspective, that liberal arts perspective, and this idea of people not just staying within their disciplines, of just having to study biology or history, but being able to cover a range of different subjects and look at the intersections. So I don't think there's any time before or after college when I was in a community where everyone's job or their everyday life was just to discuss and debate ideas and to think about the world, and so that was just really exciting to be in a community, again, not just within my major, but all the students across the university, having events and debates and workshops. I know we planned with a group of students a women's rights conference that we kind of contacted speakers and brought everyone together and advertised in the community, and so it was just this really exciting opportunity to kind of create your own ideas and debates around things. And you told me I should also mention that I met my wife at college too, so that was a great experience as well. You never know what might happen when you go off to college and who you'll meet. So I definitely credit university with that part as well.
And on that fun note, Education USA audience, I would like to encourage you, especially in the spirit of International Education Week, to really consider studying outside of Zambia and to really consider having experiences that are totally outside of the box. I think one of the fun things for me attending the University of Nebraska-Lincoln was the fact that I became a fan of American football. And I never thought that would ever happen, but every time we had a game in Nebraska, it was like something that was just a huge experience. And if you didn't attend or if you were not wearing red, it was like you were committing a crime. So those experiences will forever stay with me. But I think my colleagues have shared their experiences this afternoon to encourage you to think about studying abroad and to think about utilizing Education USA here at the U.S. Embassy. You can always write to us at lusaka@educationusa.org, and we're so looking forward to your questions, and we'll be thrilled to give you perspectives about U.S. universities. It is a worthwhile journey, and I hope that most of you can take it. So thank you so much for joining us this afternoon, and please be aware that we have Education USA Virtual Fair on November 17th this week. So please make a date with us and join us for that incredible fair featuring about 60 U.S. universities. See you there. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Belita.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for doing